I'll call you as soon as I get there. Bye.
Jeff Chandler was Hollywood's golden boy with silver hair and a voice that could make you believe in heroes. But behind the glamorous facade lay a mystery that would haunt Tinseltown for decades. After years of whispers and buried secrets, the truth has finally surfaced. And it's not the story anyone wanted to hear. The rise of a Hollywood icon. Jeff Chandler wasn't supposed to be a star. Born Ira Grossel in Brooklyn in 1918, he came from a working-class Jewish family that barely scraped by during the Great Depression. While other kids dreamed of becoming cowboys or police officers, young Ira dreamed of something bigger. He wanted to act. His journey to Hollywood wasn't easy. After high school, he worked stock theater jobs and radio gigs, slowly building his reputation. The name, Jeff Chandler, was created by studio executives who thought Ira Grossel didn't sound quite American enough for movie marquees. It was the 1940s, and Hollywood was still very much a place where your birth name could make or break your career. When World War II broke out, Chandler served in the U.S. Army, stationed in the harsh Aleutian Islands. The experience toughened him up and gave him the discipline that would later define his approach to acting. Military service taught him to follow orders, work under pressure, and never give up, qualities that would serve him well in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. After the war, Chandler transitioned back to radio work. His deep, resonant voice made him perfect for dramatic roles on radio shows. That voice, smooth as silk, yet powerful enough to command attention, became his ticket to the big screen. Studio executives noticed him, and soon he was getting small parts in films. The moment that changed everything came in 1950 with Broken Arrow. Chandler played Cochise, the Apache chief, in a role that would define both his career and Hollywood's approach to Native American characters. This wasn't just another Western where Native Americans were portrayed as one-dimensional villains. Chandler brought dignity, humanity, and complexity to the role. The performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, a huge achievement for any actor, but especially significant given the racial politics of the time. Hollywood was still largely segregated, and meaningful roles for non-white characters were rare. Chandler's portrayal of Cochise broke new ground. Suddenly, everyone wanted to work with Jeff Chandler. His combination of rugged masculinity and emotional depth made him perfect for a wide range of roles. He could play the tough guy in a war movie, the romantic lead in a drama, or the heroic figure in an adventure film. His prematurely gray hair gave him a distinguished look that set him apart from other leading men of the era. Over the next decade, Chandler appeared in over 50 films. He worked with major actresses like Jane Russell, Rhonda Fleming, and Maureen O'Hara. Each role showcased his versatility and screen presence. He wasn't just handsome, he was a legitimate actor who could carry a film. What many people don't realize is that Jeff Chandler was more than just an actor. He was also a talented singer with a smooth baritone voice that rivaled some of the best crooners of the 1950s. He released several albums during his peak years, featuring romantic ballads and jazz standards. Songs like I Should Care and All I Do Is Dream of You showcased a softer side of the tough guy image he projected on screen. His music career never reached the heights of his film work, but it revealed another dimension of his artistic personality. Here was a man who could play a rugged Apache chief in the afternoon and croon love songs in a recording studio that evening. The dual nature of his talents, the masculine movie star and the sensitive singer, would later become central to controversies about his personal life. But at the time, it simply made him more appealing to fans who saw him as a complete entertainer. However, as Chandler's professional star continued to rise, the pressures of fame began taking a devastating toll on his personal relationships. Marriage and family troubles. Behind the glamorous Hollywood image, Jeff Chandler's personal life was falling apart. He married actress Marjorie Hauschel in 1946 during the early years of his film career. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect Hollywood couple, both attractive, successful, and photogenic. The marriage produced 2 daughters, Jamie Tucker and Dana Grossel. For a while, it looked like Chandler had successfully balanced his rising career with family life. but appearances can be deceiving, especially in Hollywood. The first signs of trouble emerged in 1951 when the couple separated. They tried to work things out and got back together, but the same problems persisted. Marjorie filed for divorce in 1954, citing issues that painted a troubling picture of their marriage. One of her main complaints was that Chandler was chronically exhausted. She described a man so consumed by fatigue that he would fall asleep in public, during social gatherings, and even during conversations with friends. This wasn't just someone who worked hard. This was someone whose health was clearly deteriorating. The demands of his acting career were taking a serious toll. Long hours on set, studio obligations, publicity tours, and the constant pressure to maintain his image were wearing him down. Marjorie felt like she was married to a ghost who was physically present but emotionally absent. Despite their problems, Chandler and Marjorie tried once more to save their marriage. They reconciled in March 1955, both hoping that success had brought enough stability to make things work. For a brief period, it seemed like they might succeed. But then came 1957 and the filming of Raw Wind in Eden in Italy. This is where Jeff Chandler met Esther Williams, the famous swimmer-turned-actress known for her aquatic musicals. Williams was glamorous, successful, and available. The affair that developed between them would become one of Hollywood's most talked-about scandals. The relationship with Williams was conducted with little discretion. Photographers caught them together, gossip columnists wrote about their romance, and the story dominated entertainment news. For Marjorie, it was the final straw. She filed for divorce again at the end of 1957, this time for good. The 1958 divorce proceedings revealed fascinating details about Chandler's financial situation. He was earning serious money, $60,000 per film in 1957 and $75,000 per film in 1958. His total income for 1957 was around $250,000, which included money from his singing career and public appearances. But Hollywood's success came with a price. His personal manager, business manager, and agent collectively took about 25% of his income. Add in the costs of maintaining his lifestyle, family responsibilities, and career-related expenses, and the money disappeared quickly. The final divorce settlement was substantial. Chandler agreed to pay over $2,100 per month in alimony, plus $500 monthly in child support. He also made a lump sum payment of $100,000, a figure that reflected both his ongoing success and the length of their marriage. Marjorie's comments during the divorce proceedings were revealing. She said Chandler spent all his time when not working on films in his business office, suggesting he was completely consumed by his career. The stress of their deteriorating marriage had even given her an ulcer. The Esther Williams bombshell. For years, Jeff Chandler's relationship with Esther Williams seemed like just another Hollywood romance. Glamorous, passionate, and ultimately unsuccessful. But in 1999, Williams published her autobiography, The $1,000,000 Mermaid, and everything changed. In the book, Williams made the shocking claim that their relationship ended because Chandler confessed to being a cross-dresser. According to her account, he revealed this secret after proposing marriage, and she couldn't handle the revelation. The claim was explosive. Here was one of Hollywood's most masculine leading men, known for playing tough guys and war heroes, being accused of cross-dressing in private. The entertainment world was stunned. Chandler's friends and colleagues immediately rejected the allegations. Jane Russell, who had worked closely with him, said she'd never heard of such a thing and that cross-dressing was the last thing I would expect of Jeff. Others echoed her disbelief. The timing of Williams's revelation, nearly 40 years after Chandler's death, made it impossible for him to defend himself. He had been dead for decades, unable to respond to accusations that threatened to redefine his entire legacy. What makes Williams' allegations particularly questionable is that she had every reason to create a sensational story. Her autobiography was being published at a time when Hollywood tell-all books were incredibly popular. The more shocking the revelations, the more copies sold. Some sources suggest that Williams later admitted she had lied about this claim in her autobiography, though this remains disputed. What's clear is that no one else ever came forward to corroborate her story. Despite Chandler's high profile and the number of people who knew him personally, The cross-dressing allegations became part of Hollywood folklore, but they were never substantiated. They remain a reminder of how easily reputations can be damaged by unverified claims, especially when the accused can no longer defend themselves. While these sensational allegations captured headlines, the real tragedy of Jeff Chandler's story was still unfolding. By 1961, Jeff Chandler was at the peak of his career. He was one of Universal Pictures' biggest stars, commanding high salaries and choosing his projects carefully. But the years of intense work schedules, personal stress, and the demands of maintaining his image had taken their toll. Chandler began experiencing chronic back pain, likely the result of years of physical demands from action roles and the general wear and tear of a busy life. The pain was severe enough that he decided to undergo surgery to correct a herniated disc in his spine. On May 13, 1961, he entered a hospital in Culver City, California, for what should have been a routine spinal disc operation. At 42 years old, he was still relatively young and in generally good health. The surgery was supposed to be straightforward, fix the disc problem, and get him back to work. But something went terribly wrong. During the lumbar discectomy, surgeons accidentally damaged an artery, causing Chandler to hemorrhage severely. What should have been a routine procedure became a medical emergency. On May 17th, just 4 days after the original surgery, Chandler underwent a 7.5-hour emergency operation. During this procedure, he was given 55 pints of blood, an enormous amount that indicates just how serious the bleeding was. The medical team fought to save his life, but the damage was extensive. A third operation followed on May 27th, during which he received an additional 20 pints of blood. The surgeons were essentially trying to repair the damage from the first operation while keeping him alive. For over a month, Chandler battled for his life in the hospital. The man who had played so many strong, heroic characters was reduced to fighting a battle, the end of an era. Jeff Chandler died on June 17, 1961. The official cause was blood infection, complicated by pneumonia. He was just 42 years old, at the height of his career, and with so much more to give. The death shocked Hollywood and fans around the world. Here was a man who had survived World War II, built a successful career from nothing, and overcome numerous personal challenges. But a routine medical procedure had ended it all. The circumstances of his death raised immediate questions. How does a healthy 42-year-old man die from back surgery? What went wrong during that first operation? Were proper procedures followed? Almost immediately, there were suggestions that Chandler's death was the result of medical malpractice. Friends, family members, and industry insiders began asking tough questions about what had happened in that operating room. An investigation was launched, and it was indeed determined that malpractice had occurred. Chandler's children eventually sued the hospital for $1.5 million. The case was later settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. But the settlement came with a price: silence. As part of the agreement, details about what exactly went wrong were kept confidential. This secrecy would fuel decades of speculation about Chandler's death. The hospital and medical staff involved had every reason to keep the details quiet. A high-profile malpractice case involving a beloved movie star could have had serious consequences for their careers and reputations. The studio system of the 1960s also preferred to keep scandals buried rather than deal with negative publicity. For decades, the full story of Jeff Chandler's death remained hidden behind legal agreements and institutional silence. But medical research has since revealed that Chandler's case became a pivotal moment in the evolution of medical malpractice law, resulting in unprecedented settlement awards and changes to healthcare practices. The specific injury that killed Chandler was an aortic iliac injury during the lumbar discectomy. Essentially, surgeons damaged major blood vessels during what should have been a routine procedure. This type of injury was preventable with proper surgical technique and careful attention to anatomy. The massive blood loss that followed suggests that the surgical team either didn't immediately recognize the injury or weren't properly prepared to handle the emergency. Modern surgical protocols would have prevented this type of catastrophic outcome. Jeff Chandler's death did more than end a promising career. It helped change how medical malpractice cases were handled in the United States. The public outcry over his death, combined with the substantial settlement his family received, sent a message to the medical community that negligence would have consequences. The case marked a turning point in medical malpractice law, leading to better patient protection and more accountability for healthcare providers. In a sense, Chandler's death helped save future lives by forcing improvements in surgical practices and patient safety. But for fans of the silver-haired star, no legal precedent could bring back the man who had brought so many memorable characters to life. His death robbed Hollywood of one of its most versatile and reliable leading men. After more than 60 years, the full story of Jeff Chandler's death can finally be told. It wasn't a mysterious illness or a tragic accident. It was preventable medical negligence that cost a talented man his life at the peak of his career. The mystery that surrounded his death was largely created by legal settlements and institutional cover-ups designed to protect the reputations of those responsible. The truth was always there, hidden behind confidentiality agreements and sealed records. Recent access to medical records and legal documents has confirmed what many suspected all along, that Jeff Chandler died because surgeons made a critical error during routine surgery and then failed to properly manage the consequences. As we reflect on this tragedy, it becomes clear that Chandler's story represents far more than just one man's untimely death. A legacy complicated. Today, Jeff Chandler is remembered as one of the most talented leading men of the 1950s. His films still hold up, his performances remain compelling, and his impact on Hollywood's portrayal of diverse characters is undeniable. But his story is also a reminder of how easily lives can be destroyed by negligence, and how institutional power can be used to hide the truth. The mystery of his death wasn't really a mystery at all. It was a cover-up that lasted for decades. The cross-dressing allegations made by Esther Williams remain unsubstantiated and disputed. They appear to be either a misunderstanding or a deliberate fabrication designed to sell books. The real Jeff Chandler was a dedicated actor, a loving father, and a man whose life was cut short by medical malpractice. Strip away the Hollywood glamour, the legal battles, and the sensational allegations, and what remains is the story of a working-class kid from Brooklyn who made it to the top through talent, determination, and hard work. Jeff Chandler never forgot his roots or lost his commitment to his craft. He was a man who took his responsibilities seriously, to his family, his craft, and his fans. The chronic exhaustion that contributed to his marital problems wasn't laziness or indifference. It was the result of a man pushing himself too hard to provide for his family and maintain his career. The tragedy of Jeff Chandler's death isn't just that he died young. It's that he died unnecessarily. A routine medical procedure performed with proper care should never have ended a life. The cover-up that followed compounded the tragedy by denying his family and fans the truth they deserved. Chandler's story illustrates the hidden costs of Hollywood's success. The pressure to maintain an image, the grueling work schedules, the personal sacrifices required to stay on top. All of these factors contributed to the stress and health problems that ultimately led him to that hospital bed in 1961. The studio system of the 1950s was particularly demanding. Stars were expected to work constantly, maintain perfect public images, and never show weakness or vulnerability. The toll this took on their personal lives and health was rarely acknowledged or addressed. Jeff Chandler paid the ultimate price for playing by Hollywood's rules. His dedication to his career cost him his marriage, his health, and ultimately his life. The system that made him a star also contributed to his destruction. Jeff Chandler's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood that extended far beyond the immediate grief of losing a beloved star. The circumstances surrounding his passing exposed deep flaws in the entire entertainment industry's approach to star welfare and medical care. For decades, studios had treated their biggest names like valuable commodities rather than human beings with real health needs and vulnerabilities. The revelation of medical malpractice in Chandler's case forced Hollywood to confront uncomfortable truths about how it had been handling star health crises throughout the Golden Age. How many other performers had suffered in silence, pushing through injuries and illnesses to meet studio demands? How many had received inadequate medical care because their value as commodities took precedence over their well-being as people? Universal Pictures, which had invested millions in Chandler's career, suddenly found itself facing questions about whether the studio system's relentless pace had contributed to his death. The pressure to work through pain, to maintain appearances regardless of personal cost, and to prioritize box office returns over human health became topics of serious industry discussion for the first time. The legal precedent set by Chandler's malpractice case also fundamentally changed how celebrities and high-profile individuals approached medical care. No longer could hospitals and doctors assume they could make mistakes without consequences, simply because their patients were public figures. The substantial settlement awarded to Chandler's family sent a clear message that fame and wealth didn't exempt medical professionals from accountability. This shift had lasting implications for how the entertainment industry handled star health care. Studios began implementing better medical protocols for their performers, ensuring that on-set injuries received proper treatment, and the performers weren't pressured to work through serious health issues. The days of expecting stars to suffer in silence for the sake of production schedules were numbered. The timing of Chandler's death also coincided with broader changes in American society's relationship with authority and institutional power. The 1960s were beginning to challenge traditional hierarchies, and Chandler's case became an early example of how ordinary people could hold powerful institutions accountable through the legal system. His family's successful lawsuit proved that even hospitals and major studios could be forced to answer for their mistakes. The psychological impact on Chandler's contemporaries was equally significant. Stars like Rock Hudson, Tony Curtis, and other leading men of the era suddenly realized that their own mortality was not protected by fame or fortune. Many began taking their health more seriously, seeking second opinions on medical procedures, and being more cautious about the risks they took in their professional lives. The cover-up aspect of Chandler's death also highlighted the dark side of Hollywood's image management machine. The same publicity apparatus that had made Chandler a star worked overtime to minimize the scandal surrounding his death. Press agents, studio executives, and legal teams collaborated to ensure that the full story remained buried, protecting both medical professionals and studio interests at the expense of truth and accountability. This pattern of institutional protection would become a recurring theme in Hollywood scandals for decades to come. The Chandler case established a blueprint for how powerful interests could work together to manage damaging information, suppress uncomfortable truths, and protect their own reputations even when lives were lost or damaged in the process. Perhaps most tragically, Chandler's death robbed the film industry of a performer who was just hitting his creative stride. At 42, he had matured into an actor capable of handling increasingly complex roles. His later films showed a depth and nuance that suggested he was evolving beyond the typical leading man roles of the 1950s. The projects he had planned and the performances he never got to give represent one of Hollywood's great what-if stories. The Jeff Chandler mystery is finally solved, but the answer isn't what anyone hoped for. No dramatic conspiracy or hidden scandal, just medical negligence and decades of cover-up. The truth reveals how easily lives can be destroyed and how power can be used to hide uncomfortable realities. Chandler deserved better than the death he received and the myths that followed. What do you think about Hollywood's culture of secrecy when it comes to protecting powerful institutions? Do you believe Jeff Chandler's story would have unfolded differently if it happened in today's social media age? Share your thoughts in the comments below.